County lies a town with deep roots and quiet resilience. Citronelle. Founded in the late 19th century, citronelle took its name from the citronella plant, once abundant in the area and prized for its fragrant oil. The town officially incorporated in 1892, but its story began long before, with native tribes who called this land home, and settlers drawn to its mineral springs and healing air. By the mid-20th century, citronelle made headlines. In 1955, Alabama's first oil well struck black gold right here, transforming the town into a brief boom town and etching its name into the state's industrial history. Today, citronelle is well known not just for oil, but for its natural beauty and community spirit. With over 26 square miles of forests, lakes, and trails, it's a haven for outdoor lovers. Mill Creek Golf Course winds through the scenic terrain, and Citronelle Lake offers fishing, hiking, and even disc golf. I can personally testify to this. I regularly go camping and fishing at Lake Citronelle, and it is where I caught my personal best largemouth bass, 7 pounds, 9 ounces. As a youngin', I would annually visit Citronelle at a place called Camp Cushmataha for scout jamborees. The camp was built on the historic site where the final surrender of Confederate forces east of the Mississippi River occurred in May 1865, and named for Cushmataha, a prominent Choctaw chief who played a key role in early diplomacy and warfare in the Creek War and the Battle of New Orleans. Bertiel's, Grillbilly's Barbecue, and the Iron Skillet are 3 of my favorite restaurants in the entire county. The Citronelle Depot Museum stands as a proud reminder of the town's railroad legacy, while the historic guest cottage nearby whispers stories of travelers past. With a population just shy of 4,000, Citronelle is more than a dot on the map. It's a place where neighbors know each other, where history lives quietly, and where nature still leads the way. Citronelle, Alabama, the best kept secret in the South, and it's waiting to be discovered. Along the banks of the Mobile River, where Spanish moss drapes over quiet back roads, lies a town with a legacy carved in stone and scandal, Mount Vernon, Alabama. Little known, less talked about, but what an incredible history. Before it was a town, this land was a frontier. In 1799, the United States built Fort Stoddard here to guard its southern border. It was more than a military outpost. It was a stage for political drama. In 1807, Aaron Burr, former president of the United States, was arrested for treason and held in Fort Stoddard. His alleged plot to form an independent nation of the Southwest made headlines across the young republic. But Burr wasn't the only figure tied to this place. In 1886, after surrendering to U.S. forces, Apache leader Geronimo and over 450 members of his tribe were imprisoned at Mount Vernon Barracks. For years, they lived in confinement, far from their homeland, surrounded by unfamiliar force and humid air. The barracks later became the Mount Vernon Arsenal, expanded in 1814 by order of President Andrew Jackson. It served as a strategic site for storing weapons and housing troops. During the Civil War, it was seized by Confederate forces, and after the war, it transitioned into Searcy Hospital, a psychiatric institution that operated for over a century. Mount Vernon's story is layered: military stronghold, political prison, medical institution, and it holds darker chapters still. In the 1970s, Thomas Wisenhout, a serial killer born in nearby Pritchard, committed a series of brutal murders across Mobile County. His crimes shocked the nation, and his trial became one of Alabama's most infamous death penalty cases. Mount Vernon is also home of the Moa Choctaw, descendants of the original Choctaw who resisted removal after the Treaty of Dancing Rabbit Creek in 1830, instead disappearing into the Mobile-Tensaw Delta. In 1979, the band was granted a reservation of about 300 acres along the Mobile and Tombigbee rivers. Through scandal and sorrow, Mount Vernon has endured. Its soil has held secrets, soldiers, and stories, some heroic, some haunting. Today, Mount Vernon is home to just over 1,000 residents. Its riverfront parks and historic sites offer a peaceful contrast from its dramatic past. Mount Vernon, Alabama, where history whispers through the trees and the echoes of power, pain, and perseverance still linger. Welcome to Cushla, Alabama. Population? Small. History? Enormous. If you blink while driving up US 45, you might miss it. But trust me, Cushla has stories that can make even a Mobilian raise an eyebrow. Now picture this. It's April 29, 1865. The Civil War is basically over, but Generals Richard Taylor and Edward Canby decide to meet at Jacob McGee's house, right there in Cushla. Did they choose Cushla for its strategic location? Or maybe because it was halfway between Work Guard and let's call it a day. Either way, Cushla became the place where the war almost ended. Think of it as the last call bar before the official surrender up at Citronelle. Now, before highways, Cushla folks relied on ferries across Chickasaw Creek and the Mobile River. The Alvarez Ferry was one of those crossings, like Uber, but slower, wetter, and with a little more livestock. Bridges eventually replaced ferries, but early ones were wooden and creaky. Crossing them was less romantic stroll and more like a scene from an Indiana Jones movie. One of the good ones, not those last two. Then came U.S. Route 45, the big highway slicing through Cushla. Suddenly, you could get to Mobile without risking your life on a ferry or bridge that looked like it was built by your cousin with duct tape and old shipping pallets. Route 45 turned Cushla into a connector village, on the map, but just barely. Today, it's still the main artery, though locals will tell you it's also the place to go if you like potholes. And let's not forget the name, Cushla, from the Choctaw phrase for standing cane, which is poetic, but also sounds like a yoga pose. All right, class, today we'll practice the Cushla. Stand tall, sway gently, and remember, mosquitoes are attracted to carbon dioxide, so try not to exhale until the end of the class. Namaste, y'all. So next time you're cruising up Highway 45, don't just zoom past Cushla, reflect on it. It's where General said, let's wrap it up. Where ferries once ferried more goats than people, and where the name itself reminds us to stand tall. Cushla may be small, but it's got a big personality. Heck, they built the post office there in 1887, but lost it in 1919. I'm not sure if it got repoed or what. They do have a Dollar General now, so they're all good. Cushla, Alabama, where history took a coffee break. Nestled in the deep woods of Baldwin County, where the Tensas River winds through ancient Cypress, lies a town shaped by timber, trade, and time. Stockton, Alabama. Long before statehood, this land was home to the Tensas people, relatives of the Natchez. Their mounds and ruins still whisper of a civilization rooted in the river. By the mid-1700s, European powers vied for control. And in 1763, the French ceded the region to the British. It was here, around 1776, that Major Robert Farmer, a former British commander in Mobile, received a vast land grant from Creek Chief St. Michael. On the high ground of the Tensas Bluff, Farmer built a mansion and trading post, laying the foundation for what would become Stockton. In its day, Stockton rivaled Mobile. Steamboats churned the river, stagecoaches rattled down the Federal Road, and the town pulsed with commerce. It was home to Alabama's first sawmill, and its timber industry thrived even as railroads shifted trade elsewhere. But Stockton's legacy isn't just economic, it's deeply historical. Just outside town stands the Fort Mims Historic Site, where, in 1813, Creek warriors launched a surprise attack on settlers. The Fort Mims massacre became a turning point in the Creek War, drawing national attention and reshaping the region's fate. Today, Stockton is quiet. It is home to one of the best restaurants in the region, the Stagecoach Cafe, sitting where the old stagecoach stop used to be. It is one of the few buffets I enjoy. And just down the road a bit, the Heritage Museum preserves the stories of pioneers and timber barons. Stockton's churches and trails invite reflection, and its riverbanks still carry the rhythm of a town that once stood as the crossroads of empire and industry. Stockton, Alabama, where the bluff still watches, the river still flows, and history still breathes beneath the pines. Tell the truth. You didn't know none of that, did you? That's okay, that's what this is about. I've had a lot of fun researching it and learning about these things myself, so I hope you're enjoying it too. Happy Mardi Gras, everybody. Mike and I are taking Joe Cain Day off, but I've been running a little series on Delta Safari that I thought I would share with everybody. If you can't listen on the radio, you can always find these shows on our Facebook page, facebook.com/sipandchew, or look for Sip and Chew and Mike and Stu on YouTube. Also, if you're on the road out of town, we live stream the show in those locations as well every Sunday. Let's take a break.
Has your banker talked to you about fraud recently? Fraud cases are reaching some of the highest levels we've seen since the pandemic, and crooks have creative ways to steal your banking information or alter your checks. But there are ways to outsmart the crooks. Ask your banker about steps you can take to protect yourself and your business, or call Bryant Bank at 264-6575. Our team is dedicated to help you guard your personal and business accounts and keep your money safe. Visit us in Mobile, Daphne, Foley, and Orange Beach. Bryant Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Do you like following your favorite high school sports teams? Do you want to know more about the actions of state, county, and city leaders? Do you want a newspaper that speaks to you and your interests? If you answered yes, you should be reading the Call News. Since first published in 1897, the Call News has reported on the issues that matter to the people of South Alabama and continues to be ranked as one of Alabama's best weekly newspapers. Purchase the Call News at many grocery and convenience stores in South Alabama, including Walmart, Rouse's, and Circle K's. And if your favorite store doesn't have it, let us know and we'll make it available. If you want the Call News delivered to your home, we can do that too for less than $1 per week. Call us today, 251-866-5998. That's 251-866-5998. Or visit us online, thecallnews.com, and get connected to the Call News.
Tune in to Retire Right Radio with Paul Roberts.
Let's make sure that no matter how old and wise you grow in life, that you don't grow old and broke.
Paul is the president and chief wealth advisor with Roberts Wealth Management.
These are some of the largest life-changing decisions you'll ever make in your lifetime. I want to make as many memories from 62 to 82 as I can.
Tune in to Retire Right Radio with Paul Roberts, Saturdays at 3 p.m. right here on FM Talk 106.5.
Hi, I'm Donna Parton. Experts all agree that by reading with your child every day, you can spark their imagination and inspire their early education.
Dolly's Imagination Library is dedicated to inspiring the love of reading by gifting books free of charge for Alabama children from birth through age 5. All you need to do is register your child on the website, and you'll start receiving books through the mail. Go to imaginationlibrary.com. That's imaginationlibrary.com. Sponsored by the Alabama Department of Early Childhood Education, the ABA, and this station.
Mike Bailey, Stuart Reb Donald, devoted to the complete gastronomic experience.
I want a big butter and eggman.
Mike and Stu on FM Talk 106.5. Happy Mardi Gras, everybody. Mike and I are taking Joe Cain Day off. But I've been running a little series on Delta Safari. It's basically a brief history of the towns of the Delta. Nestled between winding rivers and ancient cypress swamps, the Mobile-Tensaw Delta is more than just a natural wonder. It's home to a string of small towns with big stories. From fishing villages to historic crossroads, each one has its own rhythm, its own flavor, and its own front porch view of the Delta and the history that is unfurled there. So grab your bug spray and your sense of adventure. We're heading into the heart of Alabama's backwater gems. This is Towns of the Delta. Welcome to Spanish Fort, Alabama, a little city with a big history and, according to its motto, a city of spirit. And trust me, they mean it. Now let's rewind the clock. Back in the 1700s, this bluff overlooking Mobile Bay was prime real estate. First, the French showed up, then the British. Then ultimately, the Spanish who, in 1780, built a fort here in Foyla. The name stuck. Now, there was a movement to name it Bob's Bluff, but when someone asked, who's Bob, they realized nobody actually knew anybody named Bob, so the name remained Spanish Fort. So if you were looking for some Southern Gothic tale about a ghost, Cherokee princess, and a haunted fort, might I suggest Disney Plus. They specialize in fairy tales. Let's jump ahead to the Civil War, when Spanish Fort became one of the Confederate strongholds protecting Mobile. In 1865, Union forces came knocking, and let's just say the fort didn't exactly hold up its end of the bargain. Spoiler alert, Mobile fell. Damn those torpedoes. Spanish Fort officially became a city in 1993. That's right. While the rest of us were busy watching Jurassic Park and listening to grunge, Spanish Fort was signing its incorporation papers. Today, it's one of the fastest growing cities in Alabama with over 10,000 residents. People love it for the views across the bay, the easy access to the causeway, and of course, seafood. If you haven't had dinner at one of the legendary seafood restaurants along the causeway, well, I question your life goals. And if you're more of an outdoorsy type, Bear State Park and Five Rivers Delta Resource Center are right there with trails, wetlands, and enough bird watching and fishing to make you feel like a National Geographic photographer. So whether you're here for the history, the food, or just to say you've been to a place called Spanish Fort, this city has something for everyone. Spanish Fort, where history, seafood, and southern charm all meet, sometimes with a little tartar sauce. Just north of Mobile, nestled between creeks and quiet neighborhoods, lies a city with roots as sweet as its name, Satsuma, Alabama. Long before it was a city, the land was known as Fig Tree Island, but in 1915, a new name took hold, Satsuma, honoring the citrus fruit that once flourished here. The Satsuma orange, gifted by Emperor Meiji of Japan in the late 19th century, thrived in Alabama's soil and sunshine, shaping the town's identity and economy. Satsuma grew alongside the railroad, its citrus and pecan industries drawing settlers and shaping a community built on hard work and southern hospitality. Today, Satsuma is home to nearly 7,000 residents, with a median age of 42 and an average household income of $100,000 a year. It's a city that blends tradition with prosperity. The poverty rate sits well below the national average, and the community remains close-knit and proud. Located in the heart of the Mobile-Tensaw Delta, Satsuma is an outdoor enthusiast's dream come true. Steel Creek Marina provides quick access to Bayou Sarah, Gunnison Creek, and the rest of the Delta, as does the Gunnison Creek Kayak Launch. There's an eclectic assortment of places to eat in Satsuma, like the Shrimp Lady for all your seafood needs, Bay City Grill, a neighborhood grill that I actually helped open years ago. The Satsuma Chevron, believe it or not, provides a killer morning spread featuring breakfast gumbo. Then for lunch and dinner, they have amazing barbecue. And coming soon, it's the sister to the award-winning Sim's House of Pizza, this one aptly named Satsuma House of Pizza. From seasonal festivals to quiet creekside walks, Satsuma offers a laid-back lifestyle with deep historical roots. Its parks, schools, and civic services reflect a city that valued both its past and its future. Though small in size, Satsuma's story is rich, with citrus groves, railroad tracks, and the enduring spirit of a town that turned fruit into legacy. Ah, Creola, Alabama, the little city tucked away north of Mobile, where the Delta's waters serenade the southern pines and every cypress knee knows a secret. Born on Valentine's Day, 1978. Yeah, that's right. The town shares a birthday with Cupid. Creola carries its history like a patchwork quilt, stitched with riverboats, fishing tales, and the laughter of neighbors who wave even when they don't know your name. Here, the River Delta Marina hums with outboard motors and the smell of fried catfish, while the breeze carries tales of settlers. The name itself, Creola, a nod to its earliest roots, a reminder that heritage lingers in every syllable. Though now mostly associated with Louisiana, Creole culture began on the Mobile-Tensaw Delta. Life moves at a gentle pace here. Folks gather at town hall and swap stores at the post office and watch the sun sink low over Dead Lake, painting the sky in hues that make you believe the Delta is an artist too. Creola is small, sure, but small towns have a way of holding big hearts. And in Creola, every road, every porch, every ripple of the Delta seems to say, welcome home. Just north of Spanish Fort, tucked along the edge of the Mobile-Tensaw Delta, sits one of Baldwin County's most quietly fascinating communities, Hurricane, Alabama. It's small, unincorporated, and easy to miss if you're not looking for it, but its history runs deeper than the bayou it's named for. Long before highways cut through the pines, this place was known as Tensaw Station. the final stop on the Mobile and Great Northern Railroad during the Civil War. When the Confederacy couldn't move troops and supplies between Montgomery and Selma, everything was rerouted through here. Soldiers rode the rails to Tensas Station, stepped off onto a riverbank, and boarded steamships bound for Mobile. For a brief moment, this quiet bend in the river became one of the most important transfer points in the South. My grandfather was born and raised here and went to a one-room schoolhouse right in Hurricane. Today, Hurricane is a peaceful stretch of Delta country, moss, water, and wilderness. No stoplights, no crowds, just a name that hints at the wild energy of the river and the storms that shake the land. It's a reminder that even the smallest places can hold some of the biggest stories. Saraland, Alabama. Today, it's one of the fastest growing cities in Mobile County. A place known for strong schools, new neighborhoods, and a reputation as one of the Gulf Coast's most family-friendly communities. But the story of how Saraland came to be, well, it's a little more complicated. Long before the city limit sign went up, the land that would become Saraland sat inside Spanish land grant. But the first residents weren't Spanish officials or wealthy landowners. They were squatters, frontier families who simply moved in around the year 1800 and built a life on land that they didn't technically own. It was a rough, improvised beginning, the kind of origin story that gives Saraland its reputation for having dubious beginnings. The settlement was first known as Alvarez Station, a tiny outpost with no real government, no structure, no official recognition. It wasn't until 1895 that a retired minister opened a post office and renamed the community Saraland, reportedly in honor of his wife, Sarah. Fast forward to 1957. Saraland finally incorporates as a city with just 125 residents. But within a year, the young city is rocked by a scandal that still echoes in local memory. In August of 1958, Saraland's mayor, Oscar L. Driver, was murdered. According to historical accounts, Driver had been trying to root out Ku Klux Klan influence inside the newly formed police department. His killing exposed deep tensions in the region and cast a long shadow over the city's earliest days. It was a shocking moment for a town barely old enough to have a city hall. For some, the incorporation of Saraland was nothing more than an opportunity to get rich, by any means. My father worked a portion of this case. He was charged with driving to New Orleans to take the deathbed confession of a hired killer who was paid to silence the original hired killer. But Saraland didn't stay defined by that moment. Over the decades that followed, the city rebuilt, reorganized, and grew. As Mobile expanded northward, Saraland became a magnet for families looking for space, stability, and strong community roots. The turnaround came with the rise of the Saraland City School System, now one of the most respected in the state. New businesses arrived. Parks, churches, and civic groups shaped a city identity built not on scandal, but on pride and progression. Today, Saraland stands as a reminder that a city's past doesn't have to define its future. From squatters on a Spanish land grant to a mayor's murder in 1958 to one of the most desirable communities in Mobile County. Saraland's story is one of resilience, reinvention, and remarkable growth. And that's what makes it one of the most fascinating places on the Gulf Coast. It sure is easy to take for granted the incredible history that this area has. Happy Mardi Gras, everybody. Mike and I are taking Joe Cain Day off, but I've been running a little series on Delta Safari that I thought I would share with everybody. If you can't listen on the radio, you can always find these shows on our Facebook page, facebook.com/sipandchew, or look for Sip and Chew with Mike and Stu on YouTube. And also, if you're on the road out of town, we live stream the show in those locations as well every Sunday. Let's take a break.
The Mobile Boat Show is the place to see and compare hundreds of new 2026 boats with the best pricing of the season. Enjoy the dog show, kids programs, touch takes, and more at the Mobile Boat Show, February 27th to March 1st at the Mobile Convention Center. Tickets and details at GulfCoastShows.com. FM Talk 1065, the Gulf Coast Weather Authority, and Dr. Bill Williams.
The Gulf Coast can expect showers and thunderstorms this morning, then a few showers this afternoon. High temperatures will be in the lower 70s. Tonight, a few evening showers, lows in the mid-50s. And for Monday, mostly sunny with highs in the lower 70s. This is meteorologist Dr. Bill Williams for FM Talk 1065.
FM Talk 1065, the Gulf Coast Weather Authority.
Talking to my buddy Sid Sexton from Sexton Lawn and Landscape. And what are you and the crews out doing right now?
Well, contrary to popular belief, we are doing a lot right now. And it doesn't matter if it's a residential lawn or commercial lawn. We're pruning crepe myrtles, obviously. We're cutting back a lot of ornamental grasses and liriope. We're putting out pine straw. We're taking care of a lot of leaves. We're, keeping the lawn mowed, which is actually still pretty good for it. We're going about every other week, edging it, keeping it looking clean. But the most important thing is a pre-emergent in the lawn and the beds. Probably most important in the lawns is getting a pre-emergent out before those weed seeds germinate.
All right, so this is the stuff that instead of having to come back in and fight weeds later, we just don't see the weeds.
Oh man, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and never is that more prevalent than in the green industry, I guess.
Well, great. We need to get in touch with you right now. Tell us how.
Well, you can find us online at sextonlandscapes.com, or you can DM us in any of our social media outlets, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Detail like a pro at Big Tuna Car Wash. Oversized vacuum stalls with crevice tools, flathead vacuums, dusting wands, all-purpose spray cleaner, and microfiber towels. Everything you need to get your car looking right. Big Tuna Car Wash. Mobile's most state-of-the-art car wash.
For more than a decade, Sip and Chew with Mike and Stu on FM Talk 106.5.
Don't shoot snack, but I got a spicy looking riding on my back. Don't eat pancakes, too much sugar and don't want. I will pray for gumbo.
Happy Mardi Gras, everybody. Mike and I are taking Joe Cain Day off, but I've been running a little series on Delta Safari. It's basically a brief history of the towns of the Delta. Pritchard, Alabama sits just north of Mobile, a city with a past full of ambition, a present full of challenges, and a future still worth fighting for. Its story begins with the railroads and a man named Cleveland Pritchard, a businessman who believed this patch of land could become a hub for early season farming. For a time, he was right. By the mid-20th century, Pritchard was a thriving working-class community, powered by industry, churches, neighborhoods where everybody knew your name. Heck, this is where my dad lived when he first moved to the Mobile area, formerly known as Tomanville. Pritchard is the hometown of Major League Baseball Hall of Famer Billy Williams, and NFL Hall of Famer Robert Brazile, as well as Auburn and NFL legend Willie Anderson, Broadway star Ethel Eiler, and retired United States Air Force 4-star General Jimmy V. Adams. But like many southern cities, Pritchard was hit hard when the factories closed, the jobs left, and the tax base shrank. Decades of disinvestment left scars you can still see today. Streets that flood after a hard rain, a water and sewer system that's been pushed past the limits, and an administration full of corruption. Neighborhoods like Alabama Village that have carried more than their share of struggle, and families who've had to make do with less. Ironically, the poverty systematically forced on the South by Reconstruction today smothers the descendants of those it was instituted to help. That's the reality, and it's important to say it plainly, but it's not the whole story, because Pritchard is also a city of champions, literally. Athletes, musicians, pastors, teachers, and community leaders who grew up here and carried its grit with them into the world. It's a place where churches still anchor the block, where neighbors still look out for one another, and where people haven't forgotten what this city can be. You see it in the small things. A cleaned up lot becoming a garden, a youth program reopening its doors, a family fixing up a house that others had given up on. You see it in the determination of residents who refuse to let Pritchard be defined only by its problems. The truth is, Pritchard's challenges are real, and they won't be solved overnight. But hope isn't blind optimism. Hope is work. Hope is showing up. Hope is believing that a city with this much history still has chapters left to write. And in Pritchard, Alabama, that belief is alive. It's in the hands of the people who call this place home. And that's where every comeback story begins. Just north of Mobile, nestled among the industrial spine of Highway 43, sits a place many folks pass without ever really seeing. Axis, Alabama. Small on the map, but woven deep into the story of North Mobile. While no single source names the first family or exact year, the region that became Axis was settled sometime in the late 1800s by rural farming families moving into the pine-forested land north of the city. The earliest recorded settlers tied directly to the name Axis were the Kirk family, who arrived in the early 1900s. Axis. In fact, they helped choose the name Axis from a list of U.S. Postal Service options. Axis isn't a town built around a courthouse square or a row of storefronts. It's a community shaped by work, steel, chemicals, manufacturing, the kind of industries that powered Mobile's growth for generations. For decades, the glow of the mills and the hum of the plants have been the backdrop to everyday life here. But beyond the smokestacks and rail lines, Axis is still unmistakably country. Pine wood, sandy soil, and family who've held on to the same land for generations. Trailers tucked under shade trees, old homesteads standing quiet along two-lane roads. A place where people know each other's people. With the population of just over 500, Axis has never been about size. It's about roots, the kind that run deep even as the world around it changes. Many residents work in Mobile or Saraland, but they come home to the quiet, to the Delta breezes, to the familiar rhythm of a place that doesn't pretend to be anything other than what it is. Axis may not have festivals or a bustling nightlife, but it holds a steady place in the region's story. A reminder that industry and rural life can sit side by side, shaping a community that's as tough, enduring, and unassuming as the people who call it home. In the northeast corner of Mobile County, where pine forests meet the Tombigbee River, sits Calvert, a quiet community with a global footprint. Calvert is unincorporated and actually falls both in Mobile and Washington counties. Calvert's roots run deep in Alabama soil. For generations, it was a rural crossroads, a place of timber, farmland, families who knew every bend in the road. But in the early 2000s, everything changed. That's when one of the world's most advanced steel finishing plants rose from the woods. First built by ThyssenKrupp, now operated by ArcelorMittal and Nippon Steel, the Calvert facility produces high-grade steel for cars, appliances, and infrastructure across the globe. It's not just a factory, it's a powerhouse. With hot strip mills, galvanizing lines, and river terminals, the plant reshaped the local economy. In 2025, a $1.2 billion expansion began, bringing electrical steel production to support electric vehicles and renewable energy. Yet Calvert remains unmistakably rural. Just a few hundred residents live there, surrounded by pine trees and delta tributaries. Churches, volunteer fire department, and quiet roads still define daily life. Calvert is a place where steel meets southern soil, where global industry hums beside century-old homesteads. While many of its neighbors are steeped in history, Calvert carries the weight of the future. Nestled in the piney woods of northern Mobile County, just off Highway 45, lies the quiet community of Chunchula, Alabama, a place where the past still whistles through the trees. The name Chunchula is believed to come from the Choctaw language, possibly meaning red cedar or cane shelter, a nod to the native vegetation and the indigenous people who once lived along these ridges and creeks. Before settlers arrived, this land was part of a vast network of tribal hunting grounds and trade routes stretching across the Gulf Coast. By the late 1800s, Chunchula had become a stop on the Mobile and Ohio Railroad, linking it to the bustling port city to the south. Timber and turpentine fueled the local economy, and families carved out homesteads in the shade of towering oaks and longleaf pines. Today, it remains unincorporated. No city, no traffic lights, just a scattering of homes, churches, and a classic barbecue shack, Getting Country Barbecue. Chunchula is a place where folks wave from porches, where the air smells of pine and promise, and where history lingers in the very soil. Chunchula may be small, but its name carries the weight of centuries, a quiet echo of Alabama's earliest stories. In a fast-changing world, Chunchula is exactly what it's always been, rooted, rural, and unmistakably North Mobile. In the northernmost stretch of Mobile County, just beyond the city's bustle, lies a community with a name as straightforward as the land it grew from, 8 Mile, Alabama. The story goes back to the 1800s, when early road builders and postal carriers measured distance the practical way, by the mile marker. The settlement that formed around the point 8 miles from Mobile city center simply became known as 8 Mile, a name that stuck long after the markers disappeared. But this modest community has always been more than a number on a road. 8 Mile grew along the old Mobile Meridian corridor, where farms, timber tracks, and small homesteads shaped daily life. Families here lived close to the land, close to their churches, and close to one another. Over time, the area blended rural character with the industrial heartbeat of nearby Pritchard and Chickasaw, creating a place where rail lines, pipelines, and neighborhoods all meet. It is the home of Chickasaw Park, one of the most beloved parks in the county and recipient of a recent $12 million facelift. They have added miles of hiking trails, basketball and tennis courts, and a state-of-the-art playground for the younglings. They've just recently begun taking reservations at the new RV campground as well. In the mid-20th century, parts of 8 Mile were annexed into Pritchard. A few neighborhoods fall within Mobile city limits, while the other sections remain unincorporated, an arrangement that left the community with a patchwork identity, but a strong sense of place. The part of 8 Mile that falls inside of Pritchard boasts a number of good places to eat, chief among them Cozy Brown's Kitchen, while folks in the unincorporated areas out Lot Road know that Thursday is steak night at Mary's Lounge. 8 Mile entered national headlines in 2008 when a lightning strike ruptured a mercaptan tank at the Whistler Junction facility. The resulting odor, sharp, sulfurous, unforgettable, lingered for years and sparked one of Alabama's most unusual environmental cases. But even that moment didn't define the community. It simply became another chapter in a long, resilient story. Today, 8 Mile stands at a crossroads, past and present, part rural, part suburban, always tied to Mobile's history, a place named for distance that ended up traveling a long way. Across America, strange booms have echoed for centuries. Deep, rolling blasts that shake the ground yet leave no trace behind. They're known as Seneca guns. Named after Seneca Lake in New York, where early settlers described cannon-like explosions long before modern industry or aircraft even existed. Scientists have proposed everything from atmospheric shock waves to micro-earthquakes, but none of the theories fully explain the phenomenon. While the legend may have started in the Northeast, the mystery has found another home far to the south, along the Alabama Gulf Coast. Here, from Dolphin Island to Citronelle, from the quiet marshes of the Mobile Tensaw Delta to the pine forest near Sims or Stockton, residents reported sudden, thunderous booms that seemed to come from nowhere. No storms, no explosions, no seismic activity. Just a single powerful blast that rattles windows and sends pets scrambling for cover. Fishermen on Mobile Bay tell stories of the water going still just before the sound hits, like the Gulf itself is holding its breath. Hunters deep in the Delta describe booms so sharp they echo through the cypress trees, bouncing from swamp to swamp with no clear direction. And every so often, the reports spike. A cluster of unexplained blasts over a few days, then silence. As if whatever causes them simply slip back underneath the surface. Local theories run wild. Some blame shifting land along the Gulf Shelf. Others point to atmospheric pressure waves rolling in from offshore. A few hypothesize about ancient geological faults waking up after centuries of sleep. And then there are the stories that never make the news. The ones that sound more like folklore. Tales of weird lights over the bay, rumors of strange vibrations in the air, accounts of booms that seem to originate from the sky. Whatever the cause, one thing is certain. The Alabama Gulf Coast has its own version of the Seneca guns. Loud, sudden, and stubbornly unexplained. A reminder that even in a world mapped by satellites and sensors, there are still forces we simply do not understand, and mysteries that continue to echo across the water and even across time itself. Happy Mardi Gras, everybody. Mike and I are taking Joe Cain Day off, but I've been running a little series on Delta Safari. If you can't listen on the radio, you can always find these shows on our Facebook page, facebook.com/sipandchew, or look for Sip and Chew with Mike and Stu on YouTube. Also, if you're on the road out of town, we live stream the show on those locations as well every Sunday. Let's take a break.
This Move by Minute is brought to you by the Alabama Port Authority, wishing you a safe and happy Mardi Gras from Alabama's only deepwater seaport. You can learn more about the Port of Mobile online at alports.com. Your state, your jobs, your port.
A day of the people, for the people, by the people. people. That's the cinema, as the annual Joe Cain procession will begin at 2:30 and pack the streets to honor the man who brought Carnival back to life in Mobile following the Civil War. As these things tended to be, the event started modestly in 1966 with the toasting of Joe Cain following a jazz funeral to the Church Street graveyard where Cain's body was reinterred. Cain was previously buried in Vital Battery. Famed Mobilian Judy Rayford was responsible for organizing the early gatherings to honor Joe Cain, and rightly so. Rayford became the first to parade dressed as Chief Slack. Rayford is buried in the Church Street graveyard. Start your day with a Bloody Mary at the Church Street graveyard and watch the Merry Widows dance and cry on Old Joe's grave, arguing over who he loved the most. Also, raise a glass to Wayne Dean, who will be once again portraying Chief Slack, a tradition he's maintained for over 40 years. So get out on the streets today, dance to the music, and raise a little cane.
I'm Stephen McNair, and this has been a Moon Pie Minute.
Mobile's French roots run deep. In addition to starting Mardi Gras, the French established Mobile as a port city. Today, the Port of Mobile is the deepest container port in the Gulf and has delivered over $415 billion of economic impact since 2019. The port serves all 67 counties in Alabama, importing and exporting goods globally and impacting over 1 in 7 jobs statewide. Learn more on our website, alports.com.
Mobile Radio's only staff meteorologist is FM Talk 106.5's Dr. Bill Williams. With a 3-decade track record of getting it right, get your weather from Dr. Bill Williams 4 times an hour every weekday morning on FM Talk 106.5. For more than a decade, they are the dynamic duo of dining. Mike and Stu on FM Talk 106.5.
Happy Buddy Drop. Mike and I are taking Joe Cain Day off, but I've been running a little series on Delta Safari. It's basically a brief history of the towns of the Delta. Just north of historic Mobile Bay, where 5 rivers braid together before meeting the Gulf, lies one of the most extraordinary ecosystems in North America, maybe even the world, the Mobile-Tensaw Delta. Spanning more than 260,000 acres of wetlands, bayous, and backwater forests, it's often called America's Amazon, and for good reason. From above, the delta looks like a living maze. Narrow waterways twist through cypress swamps. Marsh grasses ripple in the wind. Ancient river channels cut deep into the landscape, constantly shifting with the seasons. This is a place shaped by water, rising, falling, flooding, and retreating in a rhythm older than the state itself. The delta is a sanctuary of life. Alligators glide silently beneath the surface. Black bears roam the hardwood ridges. Hundreds of bird species migrate through, from osprey and herons to the rare swallow-tailed kite. Beneath the water, an astonishing variety of fish, shellfish, and amphibians thrive in the nutrient-rich currents. Few places in the country pack this much biodiversity into one region. But the Mobile-Tensaw Delta is also a place of deep human history. Natives lived along these riverbanks for thousands of years, leaving behind shell mounds, pottery, and traces of ancient villages. Early explorers navigated these same channels, and generations of fishermen, trappers, and river families built their lives around the water's ebb and flow. Today, the Delta remains one of Alabama's last great wild frontiers. Airboats skim across open marsh. Kayakers slip into quiet side channels where the only sound is the splash of a turtle sliding off a log. At sunset, the sky turns gold over the water, and the whole landscape feels suspended in time. The Mobile-Tensaw Delta isn't just one of Alabama's natural wonders. It's a reminder of what untouched southern wilderness looks like. Vast, mysterious, alive. A place where the rivers slow down, the forest exhales, and Alabama's wild heart beats strongest. Along the southern edge of Alabama, where the land meets the Gulf, lies a stretch of coastline unlike any other place. A place of sugar-white sand, turquoise waves, and a rhythm shaped by tides and time. These are Alabama's Gulf Coast beaches. From Fort Morgan to Gulf Shores to Orange Beach, the sand here is legendary. It's not just white, it's blindingly bright, soft as powdered sugar, and soothing to your feet. That's because it's made almost entirely of quartz, ground down from over a millennia and carried from the Appalachian Mountains by rivers like the Tombigbee and Cahaba. The result is a shoreline that feels otherworldly. The water shifts from emerald green to deep blue depending on the light. Sea oats sway in the breeze atop the dunes. Pelicans glide low over the surf, and every sunset paints the horizon in golds, pinks, and violets. But these beaches are more than just beautiful. They're alive. Beneath the waves, seagrass beds and artificial reefs shelter fish, rays, and sea turtles. Inland, the Bon Secours National Wildlife Refuge protects coastal marshes and maritime forests, home to migratory birds and endangered species like the Alabama beach mouse. For generations, these shores have been a place of gathering for family fishing excursions, snowbirds, and locals who know that the best times happen with sand between your toes. Sure, hurricanes have reshaped the coastline, but the spirit of the Gulf endures, resilient, warm, and always changing. Whether you're walking a quiet stretch of beach, watching dolphins from a pier, or just listening to the waves roll in, Alabama's Gulf Coast beaches offer more than a view. They offer a feeling, a sense of calm, of wonder, and of a connection to the deep rhythms of the sea. They are one of the natural wonders of Alabama. Country ham isn't just some random food from the American South. It's heritage. It's the smell of a skillet popping on a Sunday morning and a tradition that reaches back far beyond the Mason-Dixon line. Now, the story of country ham starts long before it ever hit a southern smokehouse. The idea of salt-cured pork is ancient. As far back as 160 BC, the Roman writer Cato the Elder described how to preserve hams using salt, the same basic method still used today. It would evolve into the signature cured hams of Europe, prosciutto from Italy, jambon from France, and emul from Spain. Across the world, early Chinese cooks were perfecting their own dry-cured hams, especially around Jinhua, a region famous for its technique dating back to the 1100s. These old world traditions laid the foundation for what would eventually become the American country ham. The story shifts to North America in 1539, when Spanish explorer Hernando de Soto arrived in Florida with a herd of Iberico pigs, the first hogs to set foot in the South. A few decades later, British colonists brought their own pigs to Jamestown, Virginia, mixing European curing methods with native preservation practices. The climate of the Southeast, hot summers, mild winters, turned out to be perfect for salt-curing meat. By the 1700s and 1800s, ham curing had become a way of life across Virginia, the Carolinas, Kentucky, Tennessee, and even the northern parts of Alabama and Georgia. Farmers packed hams in salt for weeks, sometimes months, then hung them in smokehouses to age. Hickory and red oak smoke gave the meat its signature aroma, while long aging, sometimes a year or more, created that deep, salty, unmistakable southern flavor. Different regions developed their own styles. Virginia became famous for their long aging and bold saltiness. Kentucky and Tennessee hams leaned heavy into smoke. Missouri hams added brown sugar to the cure, creating a milder, sweeter profile. Today, country ham remains a southern icon, served on biscuits, sliced thin on charcuterie boards, or fried up in red-eye gravy. While modern refrigeration means we don't need to cure meat this way anymore, the tradition survives because the flavor is unparalleled, and because it connects us to generations who worked, cooked, and celebrated with these hams long before we came along. From ancient Rome to the American South, country ham is a story of preservation, adaptation, and pride. It's more than a meal, it's a piece of history, still hanging in smokehouses and sizzling in skillets today. In the heart of Kentucky, where rolling pastures meet old tobacco farms, there's a dish that's more than a meal. It's a tradition, a gathering, a story simmered low and slow. They call it burgoo, a stew so iconic that some Kentuckians swear you can't truly understand the state until you've tasted it. Burgoo doesn't follow a single recipe, it never has. In the early years, it was frontier cooking at its most practical. You used whatever the land or the hunt provided: squirrel, rabbit, raccoon, venison, anything that could stretch to feed a crowd. Over time, the pot shifted towards pork, beef, and chicken, but the spirit stayed the same. Burgoo is about abundance, about making something hearty enough to keep a community going. The vegetables tell their own story.
Corn, potatoes, tomatoes, cabbage, lima beans, each one breaking down slowly as the stew cooks for hours, sometimes all day. Old-timers say burgoo isn't done until the paddle can stand straight up in the pot. Burgoo soon became a fixture in county fairs, church socials, and political rallies. It fed soldiers during the Civil War. It fed farmhands during harvest. And it still feeds thousands in Kentucky's horse racing events, where the smell of simmering stew drifts across the track long before the first race begins. There were even legends behind the ladle. Cooks like Gus Jobert, known as the Burgoo King, became local celebrities, stirring kettles the size of small ponds and guarding their recipes like family heirlooms. Each batch was a little different, shaped by the hands that made it and the stories told around the fire. Today, burgoo is a reminder of something rare, a food that belongs to everyone, rich or poor, rural or urban, newcomer or native. If you show up with an appetite, there's a place for you at the table, because burgoo isn't just cooked, it's shared.
Well, folks, get out there, support local, be local, and buy local. Yeah, support your servers, support your locally owned restaurant. Tip them well, servers are your tip. And stew, yeah, what do we do?
For more than 50 years, Mobile Bay Magazine has showcased the history, style, arts, dining, and entertainment that defines excellence on both sides of Mobile Bay. Each month's issue is filled with our unique Southern Alabama culture, beautifully captured and told through engaging articles and stunning photography.